We're talking more Browns football with another member of Team 5 Sports, Andre Knott, who's also the beat reporter for WTAM. He's got many, many jobs. I got to tell you, the first thing that I noticed about camp today was there was no music. I think I called it on Twitter Camp 7 Up because it was clean, cool, and somewhat refreshing. And I think, you know, the level of is gone.
Well, not only that, even the coaches. You don't hear the coaches yelling and screaming. You don't hear a bunch of cuss words. And I'm not saying that wins or loses games, but it does make a difference in what we're used to. You don't hear Bon Jovi every 5 minutes, then Jay-Z. And I always thought that was how Eric Mangini tried to make friends with the players. And they didn't really fall for that. And I've been surprised, I'll be honest, that without OTAs, without mini camps, both of you guys have been out there. Yeah. You don't hear the whistle a lot. The guys have gotten into the plays. That is a testament to what I think what Colt McCoy did in the offseason and Scott Fujita getting these guys together. And I think Shermer has scaled back a little bit, and I think it's been a good start for where they're at right now.
You know what really impresses me, too, is what Coach Shermer's done. He's taken his ingest in real quick. I mean, they didn't have a lot of time for the first day, and he's just kind of putting it together, and it's running real smooth. A lot of the veterans are really impressed at how smoothly things are running.
Yeah, it's smooth right now, Mike, and you're right. The question that I'll have when we go into tomorrow and Tuesday, when they finally start hitting, they're going to put the pads on the next 2 days, and the veterans have been happy. And I know we've talked to a lot of them. We all know once you get to that part, because they're going to have to get physical at some point in time, guys. I mean, it is football. But, you know, we learned a lot of good stuff from Scott Fujita yesterday about why they're not having two-a-days. Now, a day like today, they practiced at 8:45. They were done about 11:45. Around 4, they did go back out, and it wasn't a two-a-day. They did more of a kind of a stretch, is what they're calling it. They're not allowed to have uniforms. They're not allowed to have helmets or anything on. But they're still making them work. As I said, as we go towards this week, though, we're going to find out how nice this camp really is.
More special teams walkthroughs, though, is the second kind of
thing. It's more of a, it's more really like a special teams thing. And then maybe they'll set guys up in plays, but they're not running plays. So it's a little bit different than anything they've done in the past.
And then you're dealing with injuries, too. I mean, Josh Cribbs is a little nicked up. Massaquoi, obviously, is still in the boot. Ben Watson with a concussion.
And then I think with the injuries, the one thing that's helped is Greg Little. I think Greg Little hasn't played football, really, for, if you really look back, he hasn't played for 2 years. And he's getting an opportunity to be with the ones. I thought you and I were together yesterday. Best part I thought of camp was watching he and Joe Hayden go against each other, because Joe Hayden's a different guy than he was a year ago.
I know, and maybe you can help me with this. They're in shorts today. Montario Hardesty looks great. I mean, he looks like he took that year, took it to heart, and said, I'm going to drive myself to be a better player. Your thoughts on him?
I think you're absolutely right. I think, you know, when you look at all those guys from last year, it's always that big leap in size. And when Montario Hardesty walked by me the first time, I go, who is that? You know, you kind of go, who is that? Because we didn't really see him last year in camp. He had a contract issue. Then he had a knee that they wouldn't tell us about. Thanks, Eric. And now we're a year later, and I think he really regrouped on his leg. I mean, look, Peyton Hill has had a fabulous year. We all watched it. But if they're going to be successful, their offense is going to struggle. But the best part of this team is the offensive line and the 3 running backs they have now. Not only Ontario Hardesty, you have Hillis, and I think Brandon Jackson will be a huge help. He had 600 snaps last year on a Super Bowl winning team. Didn't fumble the ball, doesn't drop passes. Guys, that's what you need here.
I want to follow up on that size. Brian Verbisky looks bigger, or is it me?
Brian Verbisky looks a little bit bigger. I think he and Mohamed Massaquoi worked out a lot together. I mean, look, Brian Verbisky, say what you will about him as a player, he's not dumb. You know, his dad's an NFL coach. He's been around here. He hears what people are saying, and he knows that the spots are getting a little bit closer. I mean, because let's be honest. If Massaquoi turns out to who he's going to be, if Greg Little turns out to who he's supposed to be, where's Josh Cribbs fit? Where does Brian Verbisky fit? Because they keep telling us they're going to use 2 running backs a lot. Where does that put those other 2 guys? They have to fight for that job.
But what does the organization say by letting go of DeLome right off the bat, and you come into camp, you say, Colt, you're the guy, you're the starter, you, Seneca, that's the way it's going to roll.
Yeah, you know the thing, I think you can do that because of Seneca. Seneca, if there's a problem, we learned last year, Seneca can win football games for you. But also, I think Colt deserves this. And I mean, let's not get into the money of it, but Colt deserves it for what he did in the offseason. And I'll put it this way. They're giving him enough rope to either win the job or to lose the job. And if he loses the job, that puts you in the top half of the draft next year. Fans don't want to hear that, but you got a couple draft picks in the first round, and there's a kid named Luck out there.
The fans may not want to hear this either. They've got another 4th-round pick. Would you take Terrell Pryor?
Oh, my gosh. Today I'll say no, but I would think about it. Maybe not in the 4th, but I may, if he slips, if this works out, I mean, why would you not? The kid is talented. I know here in Ohio it's hard to like him. But you can't just let talent go by and not try to take advantage of it.
Would you take him?
I would take him. I'd take a shot. I just don't know where he would fit in. Yeah. He's a big guy. There's no question. I mean, he's kind of that H-back. You know, look what they did with Tebow. I just don't know if he's a quarterback because there's so many mechanical problems with him. You need a guy to work on him for probably a year or 2.
A whole year. Though, well, here's the reason I would take him. Because of Mike Holmgren and Pat Shermer. because of what they've done with quarterbacks. If you can sit him for that year, if you can say, we're going to sit you, you're not going to play, you're going to be on our practice squad, I would do it then.
I think it'd be a really interesting situation. I think it'd be hard for Ohio State fans to let it go. I do think, though, that he could help the Browns. If you think, you know, if you think that he could help this team, especially if you sit him out for a year, why not throw him on the practice squad for a year? I mean, it's not. He's got another year of college that he needs anyways. So why not work with a quarterback coach? The other thing, too, when you talk about him, he didn't testify to the NCAA, and that might be the best thing that he ever did because it didn't give the NCAA more evidence against Ohio State. So in the end, him getting kicked out or leaving or getting out of Columbus may have just given Ohio State fans a little bit of help.
Yeah, and we all know, come on, we've traveled all over Ohio. If he wins, he helps you win football games, we suddenly forget about things. I mean, Braylon Edwards proved that to us when he kept blaming Michigan for all his problems. But when he had that great 2007, guys, I saw a lot of 17 jerseys around Cleveland, Ohio, and no one was worrying about what he did in college.
How about the defensive side of the football? I mean, everybody talks so much about, but I mean, you are changing defenses as well, and there's some. And Scott Fujita talked a lot about it when we were there yesterday, just about the changes, and people were curious as to him. But he's one of those guys that fits perfectly into this defense. He's the leader that you want to take this team into this next defense.
You know, sometimes you listen to Scott Fujita and you forget he's a pretty darn good football player. You know, and I mean that in the best way possible. He's very intelligent. He says things the right way, and he dealt with the legal counsel in the lockout very well. But he can play. I mean, guys, he can run. He's big. They're using him as the outside linebacker right now, and he told us the other day, told us yesterday, DeQuell Jackson should be a star in this defense because he can run. The problem is you have to get to games, guys. DeQuell Jackson, over the last 32 games, I think he's missed 20 of those games or maybe 23 of those games. If he's healthy, he may get you 150 tackles. That's the big if. They may almost need to go out and get another young linebacker, in my opinion.
How much time do you give for the transition to the 4-3?
I give it, because of the veterans that they have, well, see, it's twofold, because I think Joe Hayden and Ward, they come right in. Usama Young comes in, he'll fit in. I think the problem is you're going to have to play Jabbar Sheard right away. He's been a #1 defensive end. You hope, because he played for Dave Wannstedt last year at Pitt, that he has kind of an idea of the pros. And the big question mark is Phil Taylor, who at this point in time still is haggling over minimal money, guys. He should be here. They made that trade for Broderick Bunkley. I think that trade...
They did? Only the Eagles website says that.
Well, in Philadelphia, they've made that trade. In Cleveland, it hasn't happened yet. But with Bunkley coming here, that's kind of saying, hey, Phil, we want you on the team, but we're not waiting for you. Because I think having Bunkley, who's played 4 or 5 years, he knows the defense. He knows how they're going to talk. I think it can be quicker than it was from 4-3 to 3-4 when Romeo Cornell came here.
All right, as we wrap this up, I want to talk about Pat Shurmur. And it was Taylor is a point today that really impressed me about Shurmur. He came out and said, when he's ready and he gets here, we are going to get him up to speed as fast as we can. Mangini would have never said that.
No.
I can't think of any of the coaches. Even going back to Chris Palmer, I don't think any of these guys, anytime you've got a rookie holdout, it's like I won't say their name, I won't say their number. I have no tolerance or patience for that. I was impressed today that Pat Shurmur said, we'll get this guy up to speed as fast as
I don't know how many games.
There was no anger in his voice.
No, I don't know how many games the Browns are going to win, but this is different. It's a different. You guys have been out there, and I think fans are going to like Pat Shurmur because he's one of us. He's a normal, and I mean that in a good way. He said it. He goes, whenever he gets in here, we're going to work our fannies off to get him up to, I mean, because that's what you have to do. And you're right. Every other coach that we've been here, they've been so worried about the wrong quote, and they want to be that general. Well, you know what? The players in these days, you know, when you give them the money, they're not afraid of your words. Eric Mangini learned that the hard way. He came in here, and I give him credit. He was trying to be disciplined. He was trying to push these guys. But you know what? A lot of those guys heard it, and it went right out of the other ear. They respect Pat Shurmur, and I think that respect will remain because he talks to them like men and not like children.
Yeah, how many guys walk off the podium and look at you and go, so how'd I do? I mean, he's that kind of a guy. Like, you know, he's, how'd I do? Was I good? I mean, you know, that's not used to this type of a spotlight.
Well, he said to me today, he just randomly walks by me and goes, so what'd you think of practice? And I'm like caught off guard. Great, coach. Keep up the good work.